to another ballistics comparison video. I apologize, this is going to be a couple days late getting this up to you. Just got a little bit behind this week, but today I am going over the 7mm Remington Magnum versus a 300 Win Magnum. And I know this is another popular comparison here, just to see what each gun produces. I know this 7mm Magnum is a really popular, it's the most popular hunting rifle in America right now, that caliber. And the 300 Win Mag is also very popular. They both perform very well. They're both very flat shooting calibers. You can't go wrong with either one. They both recoil a fairly good amount. The 300 Win Mag recoils a little bit more, as you can see here. So let's go ahead and jump in and show you the difference here. So here's the recoil for the Remington Magnum. This is the pounds of recoil and the velocity. The velocity is feet per second. The 7mm recoils 19.3 pounds with a velocity of 11.8. So that means that there's 19.3 pounds of force traveling back towards you at 11.8 feet per second. And that's with the 139 grain. 150 grain is actually a little less, but it's traveling back faster. And then the 160 grain is a pound more, 20.3 pounds, 12 feet per second. 175 grain is 21.7, 12.5 feet per second. So that's going to kick you pretty good. But if you notice, even the biggest here doesn't recoil as much as these down here. So the 165 grain is the biggest at 26.2 pounds of recoil, moving back 14.5 feet per second. So the 300 Win Mag will recoil more than the 7mm Remington Magnum because it does have more powder, there's more muzzle blast, and it's a little bit wider bullet. The 300 Win Mag will definitely kick more than the 7mm Remington Magnum. Alright, let's get into some factory loads here. This is taken from the 2017 Standard Ballistics chart for Hornady. And let's go ahead and get down the 200 grain ELDX Precision Hunter ammo. This is all over the counter ammo. This performs extremely well if you just need something to go pick up. At 500 yards, it's going 2,140 feet per second. It's 2,033 foot-pounds of energy, 39.5 inches of drop. Let's move down to the 180 grain SST, 2,196 feet per second, 1928 foot-pounds of energy, drops 34 inches. This is moving a little faster out of the muzzle than this guy is, but it's a little smaller and it doesn't have as high a ballistic coefficient. See, that's why the energy is less here. But it does drop less because it is a smaller bullet moving faster. 180 grain GMX, 2156, 1858 foot-pounds of energy, drops 36.2 inches. And then the 165 grain GMX, 2237, so it's cruising at 1834 feet per second energy, 32-inch drop. So pretty flat shooting around there. Let's move down here. Federal ammunition, ballistic tip, 165 grain, 1989, 1449, 46.8. Nosler partition, 1799, 1294 feet per second, or foot-pounds, 53-inch drop. Nosler trophy bonded is 2,089 feet per second, 1744. So this one kind of puts it back up in the performance as the Hornady's. The federal ammunition available with Noslers doesn't perform very well in the 300 Win Mag. Alright, go down to the 7mm Remington Magnum. The 162 grain, it's 1,860 foot-pounds, going 2274, 35-inch drop. So this is a pretty flat shooter. It's a little flatter shooter than the 300 Win Mag, but not much. They're fairly similar as far as how flat they shoot. Here's the SST Super Performance 162 grain, 2219 feet per second, 1772 foot-pounds of energy, 35-inch drop. And then the 154 grain SST is moving at 2244 feet per second, 1722 and 34 drop. And then they do offer a 139 grain bullet for the 7mm Remington that's going 2295 feet per second, 1626 foot-pounds of energy, drops 32 inches. GMX 139 grain full bore is 2255 feet per second, 1569 foot-pounds of energy, drops 33 inches. Moving down to the partitions, 2122 feet per second for the 140 grain, 1399 foot-pounds of energy, 42.5-inch drop. Compare that up here to the 180 grain partition for the federal. So the traditional ammo that is available for the 300 Win Mag, like the partitions that have been around for a long time, they don't have very high ballistic coefficient, and that's where the 7mm really takes off, is in these lower weight, older style bullets. The 7mm just has a little bit higher efficiency. So you can see this 140 grain here coming out of the Remington Magnum has more energy and is moving quite a bit faster than the 180 grains. So 40 grains less, but it has almost 100 foot-pounds of energy more. It's going 300 feet per second faster, and it drops 11 inches less than that one. And then the 160 grain also it's almost 200 foot-pounds of energy more. It's still dropping less, 6 inches less. And then the ballistic tip here, 44-inch drop, 17 foot-pounds. It's only 150 grain, 2134. So they kind of go back and forth here. The Nosler ammo or the Nosler bullets from Federal will perform better in the 7mm Remington Magnum than they will in the 300 Winchester if you're going to buy it. And these are going to kick more too up here. So let's go down to hand loads. For hand loads, there's quite a bit of bullets available, obviously. We'll start with the ELDXs. I really like those. The 300 Win Mag, the 178 grain ELDX. It's moving at 2257 feet per second. Of course, these are the max loads taken from the Hornady reloading manual. 2257 feet per second, 2012 foot-pounds of energy, drops 40 inches. So you can already tell right here, this is a much better option than these factory loads up here. So you're 212 feet per second, but it's a smaller bullet than this guy and about the same drop. And then we have, if we do the hand loads for the 200 grain, 2200 feet per second, 2149 foot-pounds of energy, 45-inch drop. So you go up here, the drop is more. I'm not sure why the drop is more, but the energy's higher and the feet per second's higher. So I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't update the drop correctly, but that is outperforming that 200 grain up there. Now the 212 grain ELDX is the highest ballistic coefficient of all the ELDXs available for the 30 caliber, and you can tell here it's going 2258 feet per second, 2400 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards, 44-inch drop. So very impressive right here. This is of course a compressed load. These are max loads, but this has a ballistic coefficient of 676, I believe. Pretty high for a 30 caliber bullet. And then this drops down to 655, I think, for this guy. 2151 feet per second, 2251, 46-inch drop. Now any of these right here is going to kick close to 30 pounds. If you look back up at the recoil chart, they don't even have a 200 grain bullet on here. So you're going to be getting quite a significant kick from these hand loads out of this 300 Win Mag. Same with the Remington as well, just not quite as bad as the 300 Win Mag. Moving to the 7mm Remington Magnum, 150 grain ELDX. This one just came out. 2227 feet per second, 1651 foot-pounds of energy, and that's 43-inch drop. Next we have the 162 grain ELDX, 2285 feet per second, 1878 foot-pounds of energy, 42-inch drop there. 175 grain, 2233 with 1938 foot-pounds of energy, 45-inch drop there. So there you go. There's some factory ammo, or excuse me, hand loads from Hornady. Let's move on to the Nosler hand loads. We'll start out with the 7mm Remington Magnum. The partitions are not real impressive as far as ballistic coefficients go. They are very great in terminal velocity. Once they hit the target, they perform very well, but getting there, they're not very efficient. The new AccuBonds and AccuBond long range are much better, and you'll see that here shortly. So 140 grain, 1311 foot-pounds of energy at 2500 yards, 2054 feet per second. Then the max load, 2273 feet per second, 1606. So that's a decent amount of energy coming from a 140 grain bullet, 36-inch drop. So it's a flat shooting. This will have lower recoil and enough energy to get an elk fairly easily. Down here, 140 grain AccuBond. Of course, I would take this over the regular partition because this is the new partition. It's Nosler's new bonding technology to get the similar performance as the partition, but in a more sleek and efficient bullet design. So right here, and these are the same powders. If you notice, the Nosler website has the exact same loads for all these bullets. They group them together and test the loads together. So 66 grains, same loads here. It gives you 122 foot-pounds more, and it's going almost 100 feet per second. Same weight bullet, just higher efficiency. And then the max, you're going almost 150 foot-pounds more, 2371, so 100 feet per second more. 35-inch drop there, so 1.5 inch lower, and then just about 2 inches lower. 150 grain partition, it's going 2,087 feet per second, 1450. This is on the most accurate load. The max load is going 2246 and 1680. So if you look at this guy, you're better off going with this guy right here. A little bit higher energy and less recoil. Now, out of all of them, I'd pick up this guy right here because the AccuBond long range is a really efficient bullet, really sleek design, and you can see by the data here that it performs very well. Here, 2309 feet per second at 500 yards, 1776 foot-pounds of energy, and 40-inch drop. So compare that up here. It's dropped 4 inches less, has 326 foot-pounds of energy more. It's going 200 feet per second more, and that's at most accurate using the same powder. So if you notice the exact same loads here again, the max load is 2477 feet per second and 2044 foot-pounds of energy with only a 35-inch drop. So this is dropping the same as this 140 grain up here, but it has significantly more energy, 2044, so 380 foot-pounds of energy more, and it's going 230 feet per second more. 160 grain partition. Again, partition's older style bullet, doesn't perform as well. 1428 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards, 2005 feet per second, 49-inch drop. Max is 1634 foot-pounds of energy, 2145 feet per second, 43-inch drop. Compared to the AccuBond, which is a little better technology, 1551 foot-pounds of energy, so 120 more. And then 2089 on the most accurate, drops 2 inches less. This one drops 2 inches less as well, about 1.5 inches actually. And then 1770 foot-pounds of energy, 2232 feet per second. And then the 175 grain Nosler partition, 2128 feet per second, 1760, drops 45 inches. And then the 175 grain, this is the AccuBond. Actually, let me fix that. Okay, and then the 175 grain AccuBond, you are 2304 feet per second, 2063 foot-pounds of energy, 42.3. So if you just want the most right here, that's going to be it. But I mean, if you look at the 150 long range down here, it's almost as much, and you're going to get less recoil out of that thing. If you just want the heavier bullet, go with that. But 25 grains less with very similar energy and drop 7 inches less, I'd probably still pick this guy. Performs very well. Alright, let's go down to the 300 Win Mag. 165 grain partition. These are cruising out of that 300 Win Mag. 2101 feet per second, 1617 foot-pounds of energy, 41-inch drop. And then the max load's 2177 feet per second, 1736, and that's 165 grain. And now go to the AccuBond. You're looking 2235 feet per second, 1830 foot-pounds of energy, 39-inch drop. And then 2313 feet per second, 1960 foot-pounds of energy, 36-inch drop. So you can see the 300 Win Mag performs about 150 foot-pounds of energy more, maybe a little bit more than that. It still doesn't quite perform as good as this 150 grain right here, but that's just the partition. On the AccuBond, a little bit better. AccuBond long range, this guy is going to be, this is the one I would go with if I was going to hand load for elk. The long ranges are very efficient bullets. This one has a 640 ballistic coefficient out of this guy right here, which is pretty good for a 30 caliber. So 500 yards, you're going 2256 feet per second, 2147 foot-pounds of energy, 43-inch drop, and that's on the most accurate load. The max load is 2353 feet per second, 2335 foot-pounds of energy, 39-inch drop. So that's packing a pretty good punch right there. Really good punch. Go down to the 200 grain partition, 1808 on the most accurate foot-pounds of energy, 1899 on the max load. 200 grain AccuBond, 2085 and 2186. Now the reason you would choose the AccuBond over the long range AccuBond is if you are planning on hitting something closer. The AccuBond long range is designed to impact at a certain feet per second. So if you're closer, I think it was, I'm not sure on this one, but it's under, like I think for the 7mm, they perform the best between 2,300 feet per second and 1,300 feet per second. And so on this guy that was this one right here, this is a little bit over its performance peak, so it needs to be a little bit under that for its maximum performance. And the same thing I'm assuming is for this guy too. So if you're going to be hunting closer than 500 yards, I would probably go with the AccuBond, just because these explode a little bit more, less reliable expansion. I'm sure they'll still do the job closer up, but if you're going to be hunting that close, I'd probably go with the AccuBond. And then last down here is the 220 grain partition. Not good at all. Horrible ballistic coefficiency on this one. I just included it to show you. So if you're looking for a 220 grain Nosler partition for your 301 mag, I wouldn't waste my time with it. Look at the numbers here. Very slow moving bullet, 1568 feet per second and 1201 foot-pounds of energy, 69-inch drop. The reason why this is so bad is because the ballistic coefficient is horrible. Look at this right here. So you have the custom competition, which is a competition round not designed for hunting. 690 BC, excellent BC. Look at the partition for the 220 grain. 351 ballistic coefficient. That's the lowest. I mean, that's lower than all these other bullets down here. So that's why it performs so bad. It's really horrible. I mean, you're shooting a slug basically, and it's just going to drop to the ground. So anyway, there you go. On average, the 300 Win Mag is about 100 to 150 foot-pounds of energy more, but it has significant more kick than the 7mm Remington Magnum. They kind of trade blows depending on the hand loads. If you're using Hornady hand loads, the 300 Win Mag will perform quite a bit better. Again, it's going to come with a lot more kick. This is a very impressive load right here that I would. It's a max load, of course, but I would use that for, I mean, that wouldn't have any problems taking anything in North America, but neither would any of these, even this guy right here. So, depends. If you want the kick, or if you're okay with the kick, go with the 300 Win Mag. If you want to do hand loading, another thing to consider for hand loading, look at the difference in the powder. You're about 10 grains less for most of the powder on these. You can see the retumble here, 66, so if you go with the Remington, you're going to be using a lot less powder when you're reloading, about 10 to 15 grains less. So there you have it. That's the information. Should be enough for anybody to make up their minds. I really like this long-range AccuBond right there. Performs very well. I also like the long-range one for the 30 caliber as well. Pretty nice bullet there. And of course, I'm a big fan of the LEX bullets, and you can see their performance right there. All of them are above 2,000 foot-pounds of energy for the 300 Win Mag, but these all perform very well and will be plenty good for elk if you're going to be hunting elk. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and comment, like the videos. If you have any requests or questions, go ahead and post below. I'm happy to do a request of any of the calibers you wish to compare. I'll continue to do one of these each week for you and get them uploaded, but let me know if there's anything you want to see specifically. Thanks.